It's time for Fridays with AI, where we ask AI to rewrite Philly sports history. Every Friday, only on This Day in Philly Sports History.
That's right. It is time for Fridays with AI. That's what we do every Friday. Fridays with AI is brought to you by Philly Goat. And in honor of the Phillies being back, they're past the halfway point, but the All-Star game is typically like the unofficial halfway point for the season. I asked AI to grade the Phillies players. Now I'm not going to go through the full 40-man roster, but AI did grade the full 40-man roster. I'll give you their grades and kind of give you my commentary on them and start with the catchers. They gave JT a C plus. They said defensively he was solid, but his offense was kind of lacking this year. He's been slightly better recently. I don't necessarily disagree with that, and I would argue that his defense has been not up to his usual standards, but C plus seems about right. They give Marshawn a D. Basically, because he's worse than JT both offensively and defensively. I might go D minus on that, to be honest. He's had like moments, but I don't know. But hard to argue with their grades for the catchers. Now for the infield, and right off the bat, I'm going to disagree. They give Bryce a B plus. Uh, that's very high for Bryce. I guess I know he was dealing with the injury. I give him a C minus at best, maybe even an incomplete due to the fact that he was injured. But that seems very high for Bryce. I don't know if it's recency bias because of the four extra base hit game against the Padres, but B plus seems very high for Bryce. And then move to Bryson Stott. They give him a D plus. His only saving grace is his defense. He's been horrible. There's no other way to put it. He's been horrible offensively. I think D plus is kind of high. His defense is outstanding. Um, I wouldn't give him the plus. I would give him a solid D, with the caveat that defensively he's probably like an A or a B. And then we move to Trey Turner. AI gives him an A minus, basically for his consistency, which he's been pretty consistent this year on offense. I don't know if it took into account his defense though. And I think the way he's cost them a few runs in a couple games this year, I'd bring that grade down to a B, mostly due to his offense. Defensively, I think he was a D. So little high on Trey Turner there from AI. Move over to Bomer. AI gives him a B minus. And I agree. He got off to a slow start. He's been great defensively, much better offensively recently. I think a B minus is a good, solid grade for Bomer. And then on to the outfield. He gives Max Kepler a D. And I think that's being very generous. He's an F minus. 100%. He's that kid in class that didn't turn in any work, and you have to give him a 50% to not pull his average down. Absolutely horrible. DFA him. I'm over Max Kepler. He whines. Get him out of here. Brandon Marsh, they give a C minus. He's been better recently. And I think that might be a little hard. I'd give him a solid C, probably, maybe, depending on how he comes out here after the All Star break, a C plus. But again, hard to argue with a C minus, especially the way he's been inconsistent. And again, he was injured early too. So if you take out the injury, like the pre-injury, maybe he's a C plus. Nick Castellanos, they give a B minus. They said his defense is what's holding this grade down, and I think it's hard to argue. I might go C plus on this one. He's frustrating, but he is at this point in his career. He is what he is. So I think that might be a little high. Schwarber, they give an A. They said he's the best hitter on the team. He has been more patient this year, really the only power hitter on the team right now. And I agree that he deserves an A. He's been the most consistent player on the Phillies this year. And then on to the pitching staff. And I mean, starting pitching, AI gave high grades to. Wheeler got an A plus, Ranger an A, Christopher Sanchez an A. 100% agree with that. They get A's across the board. Luzardo, they give a B minus. They said he's solid, but he's inconsistent. And I would agree with that. I think a B minus is the perfect grade for him. He's either great or horrible. There's no in between with Jesus Luzardo. Hopefully tonight, though, he's all good. They did grade Aaron Nola and gave him a D. That's way too high. I think you either give him an incomplete or an F based on how, now whether or not those injuries uh, held him back early in the season. I don't know, but a D is just too high for Nola because that's how bad he was. I think it was so long ago we tend to forget that, but he was bad, bad. So I think I'd give him an incomplete, but definitely a D is too high. Romano, they gave an F to. 100% agree. I put him in the same boat with Kepler. Get him the hell out of here. Little Dicky can go. What can I say about Romano that hasn't already been said? Banks and Strom, they give a B plus to. I think both of those grades are pretty high. I'd give them both a C. Banks has been better recently. Strom seems to really be impacted by the fact that Alvarado isn't there, who, sorry, but Alvarado's a scumbag for doing what he did. And then the other reliever we'll talk about is Kirkery. They give him a solid B. Uh, I I tend to think that's a little high. I'd probably give him a C plus because he's inconsistent. Although the last time we saw him, it wasn't necessarily his fault. The Giants game, that was the ump was just terrible. Um, I'd probably give Kirkering a higher grade than both Strom and Banks, just because he's been fairly consistent since Alvarado's been out. Uh, so there's AI's grades. I think some of them he's way too high on. I think this analysis was okay. Like the analysis itself was spot on with what they were saying, but I think grade wise it was a little high, and maybe we're tougher because we see it every day. I talk all the time about the eagleification of the Phillies, how we live and die by each game. Uh, but I think some of these grades are just too high. I did ask AI then a follow up. I said, "Can you grade Rob Thompson and Dave Dombrowski? Give Rob Thompson an A minus." I'd probably go B plus there because he's playing the hand he's dealt. Maybe even a B. I'd go, but he'd still make some questionable calls, questionable decisions. But when it comes to managing the bullpen, the dude is. I mean, what's he supposed to do? So I think they're a little high on him. And this is the most bizarre one. They gave Dabrowski a B, which is way too high. Uh, your two of your three biggest acquisitions this offseason were Max Kepler and Jordan Romano, and you get a B. He could still redeem himself depending on what he does in the next 2 weeks, but way too high for Dombrowski. I'd give him a C minus, D plus, because if Lazardo has been inconsistent too, so I can't go. But what are your thoughts on the AI's grading of the Phillies for the first half of the season? Hit me up on the Back to the Future voice and text line 267-495-8531. Get anything else Philly sports related off your chest. Come over to the Discord channel. Started the conversation last night about the grades. Already people, and nobody even heard the grade yet, but everybody said AI graded them too high. So let me know your thoughts on that. First link in the description of the Discord channel. But that was Fridays with AI post All-Star edition, brought to you by Philly Goat. Go to phillygoat.com. Use that promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off your order. phillygoat.com. They have you covered for your Philly sports apparel needs.